in the matter.
I'm joined now by Rory O'Donnell, President of the Irish Pharmacy Union, and by Dr. Bill Tormey, Fine Gael City Councillor. You're both very welcome. I want to turn to you first, Dr. Bill. It's not today or yesterday you were raising the issue of generic drugs and how much they would save the state.
Yeah, I did some programmes on RTE in the 1980s on this about parallel drug importing, which would mean that you buy the same drug in the same package with a different language on it in Spain, Portugal or Belgium in the 1980s.
So you were advocating a European-wide administration?
And I was asking the government at the time, why do they prevent people bringing their own drugs into the country, the exact same drug in the same box with a different language on it? And I never really got a satisfactory answer. And this has bubbled along, and here we are 30 years later, just about, talking about the same thing, except that it becomes more and more absurd. And the question that sticks out a mile, Nora, is why has this persisted so long? And
or why do you think it has persisted so long?
You can only speculate, because I do not know. But I would reckon that the presence of such a large manufacturing base for proprietary pharmaceuticals has something to do with the government being threatened with all sorts of depredations and unemployment, etc., to keep the price of drugs up. So I really believe that we've a hidden subsidy to the workers in the pharmaceutical industry in this country, and what we're looking at right now is the manifestation of this.
But do you have agreement with what is happening now with the new legislation that's been brought out?
At the new legislation because you were having me here today, and I read the whole thing this evening. And the new legislation is yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, everything, we'll tell you what to do. The HSE will tell you what to do. And really what they're saying is that they're going to do the government is going to do a deal with the manufacturer, whoever that is, and they're going to set a base price for a particular chemical drug. And that base price is going to be what the government will subsidise or pay for under the GMS or any other drug scheme. And if you wish to buy a proprietary drug that is branded and it's more expensive, you, the patient, will have to pay the gap.
Just for the terminology, I think this is referred to as reference pricing.
Reference pricing is what they are.
Could I ask Rory about the legislation as well, and maybe you might say why you think it has taken so long for this. I mean, people have talked about generic drugs for years.
Absolutely.
Why can't we have them? And we're only now really getting to grips with it because of this legislation.
Yes, the Irish Pharmacy Union has been advocating for generic substitution for very many years. As early as 2004, we made a submission, an oral submission, and written to the Oireachtas Committee for Health on the matter, and it's something that we have been pushing very hard at every opportunity for patient savings and indeed for that of the Exchequer. And some years ago, when there was a much bigger amount of saving that could potentially have been made, it would have certainly made a big difference to the country. We certainly support the generic substitution aspect of the forthcoming bill, and as we know, it went through the Seanad today and it's headed for the Dáil next.
Could you just quickly say what are the 2 or 3 main things that this legislation will change from the system now?
Yes, well, first of all, it will enable pharmacists to offer cheaper generic substitutes too.
Even if the doctor hasn't written it on the prescription?
Correct, absolutely. The pharmacist will be mandated to offer a cheaper generic alternative to the patient, and as I say, that will it will give savings to both the patient and also to the Exchequer. The generic market in Ireland is very small. It's very important to say that it only accounts for approximately 18% by
Why
value.
are generic drugs almost as dear as the patented drugs?
And it's exactly for the reason that I was starting to say. That is part of the reason why it's a very small market at roughly 18% by value. The Irish market in itself, about 4 million people, is relatively small, and medicines have to be licensed by the regulator, the medicines regulator, the Irish Medicines Board, before they are marketed in Ireland. For example, Irish pharmacists don't have access to medicines from other jurisdictions.
Can they not send a truck up and bring back a truckload of them from somewhere else?
No, they can't, not at all. Medicines have to go through the Irish Medicines Board for labelling, to have the proper registration numbers, the proper patient information leaflets, and to make sure that they are appropriate for Irish
But is there
consumers.
evidence, and would you know in the Pharmaceutical Union, is there evidence that the generic suppliers now are kind of doing sweet deals with the pharmacists by giving them sort of 2 for the price of 1 or even 5 for the price of 1, I've heard people talk about, so that in turn means that the state is still paying a very high premium for these drugs?
The main thing there is that the price will fall and fall significantly, and so too will the pharmacist's ability to get any sort of deals. I think it would be worth saying as well that on 80% of medicines are dispensed under the General Medical Scheme, the GMS scheme, and on which pharmacists make no markup or anything like that. And quite a significant amount of medicines are supplied to patients at a complete loss as well. For example, fridge items such as insulin, such as controlled drugs, and if we have to source medicines from a second-line wholesaler or unlicensed medicines, and that all that is increasing and increasing.
Well, so Bill, you must be feeling a little bit relieved that at last, after nearly 30 years when you first raised this issue, that it is looking as if this legislation will make a difference.
Yeah, I think the legislation will make a number of differences. The first thing is that it will ignore doctors who don't prescribe generically and use pharmaceutical names, and it gives the doctor the choice to do that by saying this must be dispensed as the proprietary drug.
Yes,
written on a prescription.
It allows that in the legislation.
It allows that, but the but is big in this. You can then be asked to clinically justify that specific prescription. Yeah. So it stops that in effect, because people are not going to risk stupid letters from administrators saying, why did you prescribe such and such Classid or something instead of clarithromycin?
Yes.
People are going to try and avoid that. The big question is, why do the NHS pay probably 20% of what the state is paying for?
The HSE.
The HSE.
See here, yes. Yeah.
No, why does the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, pay a small fraction of what we're paying here? That is the real question.
Well, one of the excuses that has been given is that there has to be special packaging on the generic drugs for sale in Ireland. Does that add that
there is a problem.
cost?
Does the Irish Medicines Board act against the public interest in relation to money? And in my opinion, it does. Because if you were allowed import or use licensed drugs from any member state of the Union, and the controls were the same across the whole of the Union, you would not need a special license here and increase costs here to generate more expensive drugs for the public. They could actually, the pharmacists could then import from wherever they wished once the drug was licensed.
So you're really advocating harmonising across the European states?
Saying, what are we doing in a single European market when we're separating out ourselves
Could
from
that happen, Rory? Would that be administratively possible?
I think it could be a very nice idea that Bill has. Perhaps it may be a tad utopian. It certainly isn't going to happen tomorrow. At this moment in time, my biggest fear in a case of that would be that you would have medicines flowing from a less lucrative market to a more. If there's a shortage, if somebody sneezes in Berlin,
and of course shortages in recent times have come on the market.
Absolutely, Nora, and that's been well articulated. L-Troxin and many other medicines have gone short, and Irish patients have suffered on account of that. And I think the bill, while very good in terms of the generic substitution, we welcome that. We would urge great caution as to the continuity of supply of medicines. If the price will fall, there's no question about that. But
this will be in the Dáil during I'm sure your association will be in touch with the members.
Yes, we will. If the price falls too quickly, too rapidly, that is the problem.
All vested,
thank you,
Nora, all vested interests bleat. And they all are conspiracies against the public interest.
I have to say, the doctors are not excluded from that.
Correct.
Thank you both very much for being here. If you'd like to get in touch with us on the show or have a story you'd like to tell us, you can email midweek@tv3.ie, or you can also contact us through our Facebook page. Vincent is up next, and he will be joined by Billy Kelleher of Fianna Fáil and Jerry Muttaber of Fine Gael to debate